But anyways, I'm going to talk about the first 5 minutes of any game, what I personally like to implement for pacing the introductory levels. So, you have a problem. According to the video game industry, you must convince your player that your game is worth playing within 5 seconds. Solution: I don't have any. I'm going to be completely flat out honest here. If I already knew how to convince a player that my game is awesome within 5 seconds, I would probably not be talking here and be a lot more famous. But what I can talk about is how to convince a player that your game is awesome within 5 minutes, which is a little more easier to do. Long story short, you need to make sure that whatever your first 5 minutes of your game is, it manages to complete all of these criteria above. 1, you must teach the player basic movement and camera controls if there happens to be any. If they don't know how to move, then that's bad for them. They cannot play the rest of the game without knowing up to that point. So any sort of essentials must be taught right off the bat. 2, you need to introduce a unique game mechanic that makes your game stand out from the rest. If you're expecting your game to be super awesome because it's the next Call of Duty, next Fortnite, or the next whatever popular franchise, I'm going to say hold your horses and really think through what is genuinely different about your game that makes a person want to say, oh, this is better than Call of Duty, this is better than Fortnite, this is better than Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, you have to give them a reason besides just that. And finally, 3, demonstrate why this game mechanic is cool and useful. Create levels to demonstrate why you would want this mechanic to be used. Create levels to let them know, hey, this is why this ability is useful, this is why you should totally check it out, it's so cool, that kind of stuff. This can come in many different forms. A lot of games often rely on visuals to show this off. I'm probably going to provide a lot of examples that looks exactly like that. So here's a quick case study of a game I made for those looking it up. It's at OmiyaGames.com. This is called Suddenly Thousands, and I sorted this out in like the left, middle, and finally last to kind of demonstrate those 3 points. So the first level right here, this is literally the first level. It is hard to see on these slides, but at the very bottom it says press the WASD or the arrow keys to move. And the goal is right there at the very top of that left side of the screen, screenshot. And so we have this simple level where it's an open space. The player can move in any direction and get comfortable with the controls. And then there's an actual jump button that they need to actually learn before they can proceed further. By the way, said jump button obviously requires them to know that they can jump and move at the same time. So that's kind of an important mechanic to teach them right there. Then we have the second level right here where we have these little lasers that makes it very dangerous and easy to kill your players. That's one mechanic that's kind of important to teach the player. But 2, more importantly, there's a recruit mechanic right here. You can recruit this player, which is kind of in a standstill, by clicking on the left button. So there, I now introduced point number 2, which is what is the mechanic that is unique about this game and makes you want to play it. And finally, number 3 right here, I designed a level that involves controlling a lot of characters at once, because that to me is what makes a game very interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree with it who has actually played the game. They'll say like that actually makes it really entertaining, and you have these bunch of blocks that you can push around and it's actually a block tower, and you can kind of topple and play around with for a little bit before you realize, oh, at the very top of these structures is the goal, and I need to jump a couple of characters on top of these blocks to make it to the goal. So that is how, within just 5 minutes, I convinced the player that this game is worth playing. Let's take another look at another case study. Star Driller Ultra. We have the first 2 stages depicted on the first 2 locations right there, going through exactly what the controls of the game are. The controls in this case is, WASD or arrow keys to move, and then the space bar to drill. And then you have to drill into this little tiny asteroid at the very top of that stage 1 there to be able to destroy them. A lot of people kind of get confused with that, so that's a thing that I kind of regret. But at least in stage 2, you can not only practice what you learned in stage 1, but you also learn that you can change different targets with using the Q or the E button. So finally, at stage 3, they got this full-fledged space combat situation where now they got a bunch of enemies that are flying around and shooting bullets at you. So right there, that is the main reason why you want to play this game, because there's a lot of awesome stuff happening on the screen, and you have to figure out how to dodge them all. Here's the recursive dollhouse. And this one's a little interesting one because I don't actually go through what makes this game interesting quite in the same order. So in this case right here, we have you have this house where the instructions are written on the side of the walls right there. That's an important way for getting a better understanding of how your character moves and how to control. And then right here is actually the selling point of the game. Yes, it is a mechanic, technically speaking, that you can jump into a house and so forth, but more importantly, you have this middle animation here telling you why you want to play this game further. It's a game about shrinking a lot. And then finally, we have the last screenshot providing a context as to why this mechanic is important, which is that there are puzzles involving shrinking and growing. Although in this case, it's a simple key and door puzzle. But nonetheless, it provides enough room for imagination on the player to realize that there's going to be much more than just, oh, you just shrink a lot in this game. Through Oneself is a much better case study, and probably one that's really unusual. Technically, the first thing I teach the player to do is only camera controls, and this is what it reveals. Your character is invisible throughout the entirety of the game, unless you manage to find some sort of visual cues to make her contrast from the background. So that is the mechanic. That is the selling point as to why you want to play the game. Hey, you're playing an invisible character, and you have to figure out how the world operates. Then the next part becomes, oh, this is how you learn how to move, and this is the objective right here, this little weird golden thing that's at the head of this character. That's actually the goal. So in short, I'm trying to teach the player well after I've already taught them the main selling point and the main important mechanic of the game. But then they'll be asking, so what makes these two parts interesting? Well, guess what? I'm introducing invisible platforms as well. And that's how I have it's the second level, but that's how I have, within the 5-minute mark, letting the player know, hey, this is the reason why you want to play this game. It's going to involve a lot of invisible stuff, and you need to act like a detective to find all these sort of interesting things. And that's it.